Hello, BookTube. I'm Peg, the book prize addict, and would you believe I have yet another major book prize to talk about today? This is the STELLA Prize, which is an Australian prize for the best women's writing of the year. And unfortunately, I don't really know a lot about Australian literature, but luckily I have a leader or a cohort in this, and it's the LIA, the Australian blogger, who's just a wonderful blogger, and she contacted me about us doing something together on this, so this is great. I'll be able to do the basic stuff, and she'll be able to go into more detail about the list and Australian literature in general. Now, if you don't know Leah, or if you're not a member of her channel or subscriber, you need to do it right away. I put a link down below, so you need to just subscribe to her now, because she is in the process of putting out a video sometime this weekend in sort of answer to mine, but about the prize with a lot more depth, and I think she's going to pick her selections for the shortlist. Now, the shortlist is going to be awarded on March 8th, or announced the same day that in England the Women's Prize for Fiction is going to announce its long list. So this is really a very bookish season. Anyway, so I'm going to just tell a little bit about the prize and what's on it, and to get your interest up, and then we'll all stay tuned for Leah's video coming up soon. Okay, first of all, the Stella Prize is named for a woman, a writer in the early 1900s in Australia, and her complete name was Stella Maria Sarah Miles Franklin. Now, the reason I tell you that is she actually has two big prizes named in her honor, and they have different names, but there was plenty of names to choose from in her name. First of all, she was known as Miles Franklin, which I admit, I thought it was a man the first time I saw it. But it is, I believe, the most important or biggest prize now in Australia, and it's for the best novel, best Australian novel. And it will be coming out later this year, I think, in maybe the spring sometime. So I'll be looking forward to that. But it actually got started and named for Miles Franklin, the woman writer, in the 1950s. First of all, she was an excellent writer, and the one book that most people, I believe, still remember is called Her Brilliant Career, My Brilliant Career. It was written in 1901, but even I've heard of it. It's this coming-of-age story of an irrepressible teenage girl in New South Wales. So I do mean to read that sometime. I'm sure it would be in any Australian literature course you might take. Okay, so the Miles Franklin Award was the first one, and it was started right after her death in the 1950s, and established by her estate, the prize was. And this one is the best novel that presents Australian life in all of its phases. So that really does sound good, and I'll be looking forward to that one this year. Okay, so now we're getting on to the Stella. That's her real first name. And in the 2000s, a bunch of women writers and publishers, etc., got together and kind of had a little bit of a gripe, because the Miles Franklin Award, though being named after a woman, had very few women winners in the prize. So they decided to form just a women's prize called the Stella Prize. Now, this is kind of based on what used to be the Orange Prize in England. Now it's called the Women's Prize. We've just talked about it. And it's very much like it, except that the Stella Prize considers all genres, just so it's written by a woman. And they were asked, the judges or some were asked one time, well, isn't that kind of hard to compare different genres? And they said, no, not any more than it is to compare different novels sometimes. So that will be interesting. So anyway, I am going to just run quickly through the 12 books on the long list, which I'm sure Leah will be telling us more about. Now, these are mainly unavailable in the U.S., but most of them do have a Kindle version. So I've been able to read the samples of some of them, but some of them there's very little information on. So I'll just tell you what I know. Okay, first we have one called The Enlightenment of the Green Gage Tree. This is a story that takes place in Iran in 1979, right after the Islamic revolution, and it has magic realism in it in the style of the classic Persian storytelling. And I did read a sample of this, and it very heavy magic realism from the start anyway, that looked very interesting. Okay, next we have a biography called A Writing Life on Helen Garner and her work. Helen Garner is probably one of the most important writers in Australia, and was kind of controversial, has been controversial in her disregard of literary form. Even I've read a couple books by her and really enjoyed it. So this goes over her 40 years of writing and combines, I guess, analyzes her different books and with her life. Okay, next we have a book called Anesthesia, The Gift of Oblivion and the Mystery of Consciousness. So how did that happen? That's not good. All right, let's get back to that. Oh, this happens every day. I've got too many books on here. Okay, hold still. Okay, while I'm searching, yeah, here it is. This is a true nonfiction, and the author actually had an experience while going under anesthesia in a back operation. I'm not quite sure what it was, but it also includes interviews with people who have woken up during surgery, and just different things about anesthesia. Okay, next we have a book that I really don't know anything about, so I'm counting on Leah to tell you about this. It's called Terra Nullius, and there's no Kindle version available, and even like a used copy is over $40 on Amazon. So I'm hoping maybe once, or if it gets picked to this short list, maybe they'll publish a version real quick that we all could read, because it really looks kind of good, the little bit I could find out about it. I think it's a novel. Okay, so Leah, you got this one. Okay, the next one is called The Life to Come, and it's 5 overlapping stories set in Australia, France, and Sri Lanka. So that's fiction, I guess. Okay, this one is called This Water, 5 Tales, and it does in fact have 5 stories. Each is a fragmentary love story with a nameless woman at the center and mythic dimensions. Okay, next we have a memoir called The Green Bell, a memoir of love, madness, and poetry. The author of this is the woman in the couple, and she meets this poet evidently in a psychiatric unit, and they fall in love, and it talks about the rest of their time together, which includes madness, grief, and drugs. Here we have an Uncertain Grace, and it's 5 stories narrated by different people. It is erotic fiction with graphic descriptions. Okay, this one's called The Choke by Sophie Laguna, and it says right on it, that she was the winner of the Miles Franklin Literary Award, which of course now we know what that is. Where are we here? Okay, it's told by a child narrator of a dysfunctional family that lives nearby out in the country by a river. So that looks pretty interesting too, actually. Okay, this next one is a biography about Martin Sharp, who was an artist in the 60s and 70s, an Australian artist, and he seemed to combine, as they say, high art and low art. That picture behind him must be an example. And he evidently led the high life with rock stars, etc. So I'm sure Leah probably knows more about Martin Sharp than I do, but that looks interesting. Okay, next we have, I love this cover, The Fish Girl, and it's a novel of an Indonesian girl who leaves home and begins work she leaves the small village where she lives in and begins to work for a Dutch merchant, and the changing of her life through that. It's a great cover. I hope that one gets on the short list. Okay, and last we have Tracker, which again is a memoir, and it explains it all right in the top there, which I'll just read it. The Miles Franklin Award winning author's tribute to the visionary Aboriginal leader Tracker Tilmuth. So it is about a real person. Okay, that's about all I know about this prize. So I am looking forward to Leah's. I think she may choose her picture the short list, and I'm sure give us a lot more information. So it's all yours, Leah. Looking forward to it. Bye.